Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow councilors, staff. I'd like to call tonight's regular council meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that we are gathering this evening on the ancestral lands of the Subasik people who have stewarded these lands for millennia. Tonight's meeting is held via the council chambers at 39 South Shore Road and will be transmitted electronically. Looking for introduction of any late items. Nothing from staff, anything from fellow councilors? So approval of the agenda is presented, please. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, seconded by Councillor Sandu. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Public input. So public input provides you an opportunity to provide input on anything on tonight's agenda. You have 3 minutes. If you want to come up to the podium and state your public input, that would be appreciated. I don't see a mad dash up to the podium. There is at the end, but if you want to provide input prior to the question and answer period, this is your opportunity to do so. You're good till the question period. Okay. So we'll move on. We have adoption of some minutes. The minute of the public hearing held on September 24th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Austin. No errors or omissions that you noticed. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Also minutes from the regular council meeting of September 24th. Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Bomaka. I have good peripheral vision. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Any business arising from those minutes? None there? Okay. We have delegations and representations. Vicky Paz of the Lake Cowichan Bearware Association. I don't see her here. She's coming in now. So there she is. I just called your delegation, ma'am. So if you want to come up to the podium. So you have 10 minutes for your presentation. If you need more time, we always look at council for approval of additional time should you need it. Just an indication that we do not make decisions on the time of the delegation. If you do have requests, we will consider them at a later date.
What did I just do with my glasses? Greetings, Honorable Mayor, members of the Town Council, and fellow citizens. My name is Jacqueline Shirk, and I'm a member of the Lake Cowichan Bearware Association. It's been almost a year since we first appeared before Council to introduce our new Bear Aware group. And since then, we have been working hard to raise awareness of this town's issue with bears. We note that in 2022, the town adopted Bear Smart bylaws, but that these bylaws aren't being enforced currently. At this time of year, bears are getting into fruit trees unharvested. We have worked with WildSafe BC to notify residents that the fruit is attracting the bears. We did provide the township with a list of some of the locations that these unharvested trees are on. I don't think we've heard back from you about that yet. I think there was about 22 locations on the list. We'd like to bring to your attention that it appears that the CBRD has just voted to recommend to the board that bear-resistant garbage totes be provided to all residents in the CBRD. We learned this through the Chemainus Valley Courier newspaper last edition. So we are wondering, would the township of Lake Cowichan be included? In any event, this is an important key ask of our group to you. So this is Vicky Paws, and she's going to carry on from here.
All right. Well, you've heard from me several times. You did number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all out of order here. We can. Okay. Now you'll see on your list, our number 2 concern is that we do still want to work forward with getting Bear Smart here in town. And we know it's a lengthy process. And WildSafe has offered to work with us to do this, but there is funding going to be needed for that. So we want to remind council that we could use some funding for, actually for WildSafe. Did you know that we didn't give any money to them this year? And Sashin, who was our coordinator for the area, he continued to service Lake Cowichan despite having only 40% of his budget. He had to stop in August. He has nothing left for coming out for the fall season in Cowichan, the whole CVRD. But Lake Cowichan, he did make note that, yes, there was no support this year. He also did come to the schools and do presentations as well. And he gave us a wealth of knowledge. He was a super coordinator for us. And at the last time we went out, we did walk around town with him doing bear aware signs and tagging of garbages that were non-compliant. And he ended up just giving me a stack of all his stuff from WildSafe because he was bowing out at that point. So we do have all of his things, and we will continue to walk the town. But, you know, to become Bear Smart community, I think in the long run, it'll save money. So we do need to put that as a focus in the future. And we're looking also to put I don't know if any of you know, Port Alberni was the first Bear Smart community on the island. And they did it back in the early 2000s. And it was WildSafe actually that wrote up the bear conflict and mapped out where the bear problems were. We've already done a lot of that work for council. So I think we're farther ahead of the game at this point. And it would be really great if somebody on council could be officially our liaison to talk to, so that if we came in, we could meet and sit down and actually see what the town is capable of supporting us. So it's just an ask, but hopefully it's an ask that will be accepted. Okay. The biggest problem we've heard is scheduled garbage pickup. Now, we are hearing from people from Honeymoon Bay and Yubo as well. So I know they're not on the same schedule or the same program as us. But during the height of seasons like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, they are asking if there's any way that we could, I don't know, have special garbage pickup, especially of organics. Looking at the chart, I can see that, you know, the Meads Creek and Bings is closed after the holidays. So we can't schedule any kind of garbage pickup at that point. But that time between Christmas and New Year's, we know that's going to be a problem time. And is there any way that perhaps on the Saturday we can get a special organics pickup in town? Again, one of our asks, and it might not happen this year, but maybe for next year on special holidays like that, we get a little extra. Okay. I have a big list too, and I never follow my notes, as you know. Okay, now we're also asking, we're going to have a website very shortly, and we're going to provide newsletters to the community. We'd like to have a link on the town website that will link over to our site so that we can list all the bear safety things and our newsletters. I don't know if that's in the town staff that do the website that we could do that. Also, when the town sends out property taxes and our utilities bills, if we could insert some information within that as well. We're looking at doing it ourselves. We have had huge support from the community in our fundraising. And we have looked at maybe printing off something and putting in everyone's mailbox, but it's costly to do that as a little group like we are, this, as our volunteers. So that would be a help if we could include it with the town mailouts. Now, I do want to tell you a few good stories that we've had. In door knocking, you get to talk to all kinds of people. I would say out of hundreds of people that I knocked on doors, 1 or 2 were against the bears, that they didn't care one way or another. It just didn't involve them. But generally, most people were so supportive of it. And we found that as well at our barbecue fundraisers and all the different events in town. People would come up and support our initiatives. They love wildlife here, and it's not just for bears. When you clean up garbage and things like that, you're saving all wildlife or keeping the undesirable wildlife out of our town as well, because we don't want rats and things. So because of that, we feel that the town does have a bit of responsibility here to support us. We're the only bear aware group in all of Cowichan. The other towns don't have anything. We would like to expand to include, the other electoral district of Yubo and Honeymoon Bay. And so we will work with them. And if we could have a chance to speak, that would be to the CVRD board, that would be super. Because it's going to take a whole community to solve this problem. And I'll say that we did one bear aware visit near Caroline's, and I went to the place personally. It was a disaster. There was fruit trees overflowing, garbage on the ground. And I went and I talked to the person. Over that weekend, they cleaned up and they sent me pictures of their cleaned up property. It was really, it made me feel great that I actually made a difference on one property. We also had a raffle draw on our last barbecue, and it was for a planter. And when I went to deliver it, the people were picking the fruit in their backyard. And I kind of came and I went, wow, this is great. She says, no, we learned from you at the barbecue that we have to pick our fruit. So it does make a difference. And as I said, we've got this. Red dots are all multiple bear sightings. So I've got multiple people telling me about the bears in these areas. And when you look at it, you can see this is probably one bear here, a bear over here, and they have their territories. And I know some of these bears have been getting into the garbages. Some are just walking through the areas. There's one that I'll be visiting this week, that's Neva and Oak McDonald area. There was a bear trap there last year. The bear was killed there last year. There's a bear back again this year. Bears just fill the void. When we kill one, another one comes in. And there are kids out throwing rocks at the bears in this one particular backyard. So I'm going to go and talk to those people. We put up signs. I'm sure all of you noticed our signs. We have 5 more on order that we are actually going to put up. And I put them up without permission. So I'm asking now for official permission to post all of our signs. Because I think people noticed the one coming into town, that A-frame board. I had that mentioned to me several times. And now with the ones around town, we're putting them in these locations where the most bear sightings have been. So basically that's all of our asks. You have the list. We always give you a list, and the article on the bear resistant garbages. So any questions?
I will turn to my counselors and see if they have any input. Councillor Sandu.
Thank you. I just had a question. You talked about a special garbage or organics pickup.
Yeah.
Something I'm curious about is how many households are actually doing organics? I don't see a lot in my area. I
No.
see more just garbage than I do the organic bins. So
And yes, I 100% agree. And I don't know if you saw it. I did put a post up on Facebook about it and got chewed up pretty bad by people about that. No, people are not. And I know the CVRD did a survey on it. And what was it, like 3 out of 10 properties or some crazy amount were using it. What people do is they're great at using their like potato peels and things like that, throwing it into an organics. But it's food waste that's often in their fridge. They look in the container, go, and they throw that in the garbage.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that really they should clean that out, put it in their organics and actually have it clean the container out, put it into their recycling, and that would save us massive tipping fees. I do know that we have the highest tipping fees in BC for garbage. And, when you see the route that our garbage takes, it's, environmentally, just the haulage of it is bad, and the amount that we're spending. So I don't know if that's something to maybe be included in the utilities bill that has the garbage and all the breakdowns of what we pay. Perhaps let people know that, hey, if you want your taxes to go down or costs to go down, let's do the proper job with our garbage.
well, I think that's what council's talked about is doing it next year, doing information out in the community about,
Good.
again, recycling organics, garbage and
Yes.
all of that, right?
All
So,
of that.
yeah.
The new blue bins are fantastic.
Yeah.
They hold a lot, but we got to get people to use them. And I will say, kind of in conclusion, we have noticed a big difference. The town has done a lot this past year or two. I like Aaron's post with all the videos of what we've done, but we've noticed, or I've noticed, the parks are much cleaner. They look great. When visitors come into town, it looks really crisp in town, and we are, really happy that the duck pond has been fixed, and with the new washrooms, the bridge is fixed, because those are all routes we all walk. Then there's a dog park. A lot of people don't know that. So super that there's been a lot done. And I know we're just adding on to the wish list of everybody in town that has a lot of requests of you. But I think we can do it. I think this town can do it.
Garbage tins for the town site.
That's true. I hope that it's in our budget at some point, our budget, I'm just like a part of this. That we get bear-proof locking containers in the parks and things.
Let's say bear resistant.
Bear resistant, there's no bear. That is very true.
No. And
No.
in all seriousness, we have had that discussion in our previous budget discussions
Yeah,
about implementing those, especially at the duck pond
yes,
and at Kate's Park and at the trail's edge, trailhead. So we have had those discussions. It's just a matter of implementing them in the budget
Okay.
process.
good. I figured you did. Perhaps, we can get sponsors, to sponsor a garbage pail. Some of the businesses in town that, do well during tourist season. It would be great if they sponsored a garbage pail.
So on your asks, we, as I said earlier, we do not make decisions during the delegation, but we have taken notes.
Okay,
I would encourage you on the signs to reach out to our staff and see how we can go forward in the placement if that's possible. We have to be very careful on the placement of those within BC Hydro poles, for instance,
okay,
because of safety issues. We've been warned about that in the past, just so you're aware.
okay. So
If
we
they-
should move them off hydro poles and put them on a different,
Work with staff and they
Okay.
will come up with a
better-
solution, I hope.
Okay.
But that has been brought to our attention many times, whether it's garage sale signs or
True.
if you're nailing something on the hydro pole and someone has to climb that, it's a safety issue.
it's a safety issue. Okay.
But
well,
other than that, I'll
I'll
look to
talk to
Councillor Frisbee, please.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track as far as having someone from council and maybe a staff member meeting with you guys, because a lot of these questions are common sense, like this should happen, but then we have to look at staff to see what is actually
right.
achievable. So I think the best way forward would be having a council member and staff member and meeting regularly
Okay.
to see what we can do. I mean, that would be mine. I know that's, sometimes daunting to come and present like this, and then we don't have the answers for you straight away. So I think a better course of action would be to kind of split off from this process so we can get things done.
Okay, that would be super. If we could meet even just short time once a month, it would be fabulous. Yeah.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for all your work and for cleaning up that property not far from my house. And you've done great work in that area, especially on those two streets around there. So keep up the good work and we'll do the best we can with when budget comes around.
Super.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Oh, our petition. Oh, my goodness. I forgot. Oh.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Yes, there you go.
A final note, I'd encourage you to reach out to Director Morrison and Director Deck on the implementation of the Bear Smart program as well. So those are the two area directors that you could reach out to. Okay. And moving forward, I believe that we should bring forward the possibility of a council liaison on this. So we'll put that on a future agenda to see if there's any interest from council members to sit on that. Moving forward, action items we have, Vancouver Island Regional Library. We have a council appointment for representation. And I would like to move that Councillor Bomaka be the Town of Lake Cowichan's Vancouver Island Regional Library Board appointed representative. Do I have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Do you accept, Councillor Bomaka? You have to say yes.
I am.
You've been voluntold.
Yes. I've been-
And we're looking for an alternate.
I would like to nominate Councillor Austin as the alternate to the Vancouver Island Regional Library.
Do you accept, Councillor Austin?
Okay. I've been voluntold to.
You've been voluntold. I did offer earlier, but nobody heard me, so that's good. So we have Councillor Bomaka as the representative and Councillor Austin as the alternate. Thank you very much. Also, we have the Cowichan Valley Regional District. It is a letter of support for the Cowichan Tech and Innovation Ecosystem or ecosystem, whichever you wish. Joseph, did you wish to speak to that?
They're basically looking for support from the communities in the area. And it's the Cowichan Tech and Innovation Ecosystem. They're making two grants. One is for 500,000 through the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program. And the other is a 62,500 from ICE-T.
Any input from council? Looking for a letter of support moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Sandu. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Also, under information or consent items, there was the Youth Parliament of British Columbia regarding the 96th Parliament. If you wish to speak to that, this would be your opportunity. I know we have had representation in the past, but I don't think there's interest in this sitting, but not at this opportunity. We'll continue to look at options in the future of the 97th Youth Parliament. So moving forward, we have council and committee reports. Committee of the Whole, Councillor Austin, please.
Committee of the Whole?
Oh.
No, you're
When
right.
was it?
September.
September.
I wasn't here on October 8th. Trust me, I was
Oh, I guess I
really
did.
not well.
Did you take that one?
Yes,
Okay, and I think the minutes were distributed by email, thanks to Councillor Austin,
No, that was her outreach.
outreach one. She's on
That was
too many committees,
So do I-
if you can.
Thank you. That the committee recommend that all Advisory Planning Commission meetings be recorded for audio and video for council purposes. Moved by Counselor Frisbee, second by Counselor Vomaka, that the committee recommended that the water, sewer, and refuse rates be brought forward to council for bylaw approvals in November 2024 with the proposed rate increases as follows. An increase of 4% per year for water and sewer rates for 2025, 2026, and 2027, and an increase of 3.6% to 5% for the waste, organics, and recycling services for 2025, 2026. Moved by Counselor Sandu, Counselor Frisbee, that the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department's incident report in the amount of $10,767.99 for September 2024. Moved by Counselor Frisbee, second by Counselor Vomaka, that the committee recommend the approval be given to the 2025 Otaki student delegation for the use of the town's logo for its use on such items such as shirts or fundraising and travel. Moved by Counselor Frisbee, second by Counselor Vomaka, that the committee recommend that a leave of absence for Counselor Austin be approved for the committee of the whole meeting held this day. And moved by Counselor Vomaka and second by Counselor Frisbee, that the committee close the meeting to the public to deal with issues dealing with labor relations, litigation, potential litigations affecting the municipality, which falls under 90.1C and 90.1G of the community charter.
And you're moving those minutes?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Vomaka. I know you're just scrolling, but
Looking at all this raising Frisbee, this Councilor Frisbee section.
all in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission, either Counselor Frisbee or Counselor Sandu wish to report on that?
Find my buttons on. Our next meeting is November.
Thank you. Vancouver Island Regional Library, Counselor Austin.
There's another meeting Saturday, October 26th, there's a hybrid meeting. That was already the last one I attended.
Thank you. Community Forest Co-op, I have nothing to report on that one. Other reports, we have the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board meeting. Due to my absence, Counselor Vomaka took my place at those meetings, and I will turn to her for any input.
Okay, thank you. In September the 25th board meeting, we all said goodbye to Mayor Aaron Stone from Ladysmith and wished him well in his new ventures and thanked him for his many years of public service. There we saw a delegation on the impact of the CVRD's three-stream collection service that will have an impact on a local family business that serviced areas A, B, and C. And it was quite sad to see a small family business that had been serving there for years being pushed out. It's good that the three-stream is coming in, but it's just sad to see it impact, a family that's worked hard to build up a business. October the 2nd, Shawnigan Village Water System Service Established bylaw was passed with $3.2 million being borrowing was authorized for the CVRD to purchase Shawnigan Village Water Works. So I think it's nice to see them finally get a good water service in their area. On October the 9th, the Regional Growth Strategy will be looking for a letter of support, but I do believe our Advisory Planning Commission already made a report on that one, the regional growth in the area. So we'll look forward to that to come back. So thank you very much for what small amount I got to do.
No, I thank you for taking my place during my absence. Much appreciated. I most certainly did, and I'll come back to it. Thank you. And with that, that was just for information. I will come to you, Counselor Austin, for the APC or the Advisory Planning Commission.
Thursday, you look at the agenda and minutes are all on the website. I think minutes were sent out a couple of weeks ago as well.
So it's been Thursday.
It's Thursday. Thank you very much. And those meetings are open. Should people wish to attend? That's a question. To staff? Thank you. I know I didn't direct it to anybody. No, that's good.
You guys all look at different.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward to the community outreach team. And again, those minutes were sent, I believe.
Yes, I sent minutes, but I also want to mention that, you can do the applications for, applications for Christmas hampers are available starting November 12th. And the delivery date is December 19th. Community Services does a lot of wonderful work in helping the people in our community that need assistance with this at this time. I didn't attend the meeting, that's why I sent the minutes out to you. Quite a few people were not there at the time, but it's a wonderful group of people and there's lots of good stuff going on in our community to help those in need.
Very good. Thank you very much. Our Cowichan is the next report.
There's a bear.
Speaking of the bear,
It's coming.
Oh, for heavens, where's Vicky? Get over here, Vicky.
so that couldn't be any more appropriate, could it?
Wants to speak.
Yes, he could have been here 20 minutes earlier
That would have been funny.
and he could have been on video.
Behind her, like.
He's our mascot.
So now that we're moving the bear along, our Cowichan is the next report. Counselor Sandu.
Our next meeting is November 14th.
Thank you very much. Cowichan Watershed Board, I know you do have something to report there.
I do. For the Cowichan Watershed Board, our next meeting is October 28th. Last night, the Cowichan Watershed Board held their quarterly speaker series and from the town Lake Cowichan, we had Mayor McGonigal, Councillor Frisbee, myself, Mr. Smith, Mr. Sandu that attended. And it was Dr. Ken Ashley reflected on the 2023 Cowichan River fish kill and where we go from here. And it was a great, it was a good report. The dynamic of, how did he say, just the way everything aligned, nature, not nature. And he said that he spoke about how the town of Lake Cowichan has been very proactive regarding the fish kill and regarding our sewer lagoon, our effluent and whatnot. And the momentum is building with a lot of organizations within and the town of Lake Cowichan to look at what the future will hold and what we need to do regarding our sewer lagoon. So there's a lot of discussion to have and I'm looking forward to that.
I think one of the things that stood out for me was the way that sewer treatment, wastewater treatment, whatever you want to call it, has morphed from the 70s when the lagoon system was put in place and how it has changed what goes into the sewer systems. There was no cancer drugs. There was no medications that are currently available to people that are going through the wastewater system. And that has an impact on how the lagoon system performs. So it'll be interesting to see how we move forward. We were given kudos for the steps we took during the summer to not flush off effluent during the hot months. We held it within our third cell. So at never at any point during the summer of the fish kill or this year were we below the dilution rate of 200 to 1 within the effluent, but there was a perfect storm of temperature, algae, and low oxygen within the river and nitrates. So it was an interesting presentation. We have asked for that presentation to be sent to us and we can have that put forward at a future meeting just so we can have the public have a look at that too. So thank you for that.
Just one more thing. And also Dr. Ashley said that he has got some meetings in November in Cowichan Valley, and he'd actually like to come up to Lake Cowichan and do this presentation with the rest of staff and council.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Frisbee, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we were commended for our actions, but I did feel like we were called out as far as what our plans are for the future. The last slide over the whole hour, after an hour of talking to us, his last slide was, it is your decision. You can either do up your 1960 Chevy, or you can buy a brand new Chevy 2028 Malibu. So I felt like he threw out a challenge at the end there that, you know, there's no point doing up an old car just because it looks good and you can when you've got the kind of technology that'll put us through the future. So we've been challenged on this one. I realize there's financial constraints, but it's going to be a tough ask, isn't it?
And I think we all want what's best for one of only 44 heritage rivers, not only provincially, but federally. Cowichan River is the only one with provincial and federal designation as a heritage river. And it's #2 fishing river in Canada. You don't want to be #1 because you can get knocked off. So if you stay at #2, there's always room to go. But that was an interesting point as well. And without funding to go along with that heritage designation, all it is a diploma on the wall. So we will be reaching out to higher levels of government for consideration on how we move forward. This could be a generational project, something that could leave the river healthier than it was last year. So look forward to those discussions. Next, we have the council appointment for the 2025 delegation to Otaki. We usually appoint a council member as the head of the delegation, and this would be the opportunity to do so. I traveled as the head of the delegation last year and would consider someone else stepping forward should they wish to be the lead of the delegation this year or next year, sorry.
Moving to Ottawa in the end of May and June, so that's too much within a month.
I've been to Otaki twice. So
Nothing to hold you back a third time. It is in July 2025. So currently, let's appoint Mayor McGonigal as the lead of the delegation until someone looks at their calendar and might suggest that there be someone other. I don't want to take the opportunity all the time. Councillor Austin?
Did you want the report, their current report on the group as well?
If you wish to piggyback, that would be an awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm just liaison to the group, and our executive secretary is working diligently with them. The group had a successful hot dog sale this past Sunday at Country Grocer and also collected till tapes. There is a burger and beer event this Thursday, October 24th at the Riverside Inn. The cost of the tickets are $30. Several auction items are also available at this event. Check out the Otaki Delegation Facebook page or purchase tickets from the delegation members. And I believe you can also purchase them at the door. They're also planning to procure a firewood license in the near future. Their next meeting is Monday, November 4th at 6 p.m. at Country Grocer. And the delegation from Otaki will be coming in the fall of 2027 here. So they're expecting another delegation from Lake Cowichan in 2026, I gather. That way we will get back to the odd and even years, the way we started in the beginning. So there will be two, and there are groups of, there's some young students that I connected with last year that want to go next year too. So I think it's well on its way for the next one as well.
So on that note, I don't think it's time sensitive that we do appoint a council member. So let's just pause on that and have a look at your calendars and availability, whether you wish to travel to our sister city as the lead delegate. And I will just let you know that politicians in Japan, especially small community politicians, are highly revered. not like other parts of the world. The mayor of Date City has a driver, a limousine. I'm not suggesting I want a driver or a limousine. But there is no disdain about a public politician within Japan. So just so you know that. Different entity, that's for sure. So have a look at your calendars and let me know if you are willing to step up for that position. Moving forward, we have a report from our fire chief, Mr. Knott, on the replacement of tender number 8. Mr. Fernandez, you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, once a fire truck or tender reaches 25 years, it's got to be replaced. And it will be reaching that age in 2027. So in the meantime, we have to make plans to replace the truck. So we are asking council's approval to move ahead with the purchase.
And the current purchase would be, as the report states, just for the chassis, and
Correct.
then the continuing funds would be when the delivery happens, I believe.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Counselor Sandu, seconded by Counselor Vomaka. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving forward, James Van Hemert, our contract planner, for the analysis of increased density. What an enthralling subject. Did you miss me, James?
I did.
You're just saying that.
So you have the report, and I would like to just provide some highlights, and I can answer any questions. So this report is the basis for 2 bylaw amendments, which you will have before you this evening. The first one is amendment to the zoning bylaw, first and second reading, and also an amendment to the subdivision bylaw, because some of this falls over into the land of subdivision. So that also is before you later this evening. So this is a report which was reviewed by the Advisory Planning Commission last month, and they supported the changes that you see in the bylaw, the draft bylaw this evening. What we are doing this evening is primarily a result of the initiative. It's actually, we labeled it initiative number 1 because it just happened to be number 1 in the Housing Accelerator Fund grant from the federal government. And, but the timing ended up being that it actually isn't the first one. You've already seen 2 of them, and that is the secondary suites and also the rental only. But the grant proposal is to incentivize 5 additional units over the period of 3 years, over and above what we're already building in the town. So that's over a 3-year period. And it dovetails into the provincial initiative, Bill 44, which, although we are not required to comply with all of those elements because their population's under 5,000, I used it as a guide to compare what the province is doing elsewhere and how we might fit elements of it here. It seemed a reasonable approach. So we can basically do a custom approach to this, something that fits Lake Cowichan. So we've already taken care of secondary suites. That was a requirement of Bill 44, which we needed to comply with, and we have addressed that. Primarily where we're headed is to look at 4 units on a lot. That's the predominant element of Bill 44, which was considered here. And I look at a few communities in our neighborhood as well. So I'm not going through all the report, but I do want to highlight something. So on page 7, I put in some images of a quadplex. So I always use the word 4plex, but the province is using the word quadplex. So I thought, well, let's use that language. That sounds cool. You know, duplex, triplex, quadplex. It all fits together. So, but they have just published, this is another exciting title, the Standardized Housing Design Catalog. So in there are some really, I think in some cases, they're quite lovely. They're basically buildings that fit certain types of lots. And so I just put in here, I plugged in here just an illustration of what that would look like, that could look like even here in the town. But it's just an illustration. They include floor plans and so on and so forth and where the parking is. This is tied again to Bill 44. So the province is providing resources. We also have been receiving calls from developers interested in this type of development, the quadplex. In fact, I know there's at least one developer who owns land in town who is waiting for the ultimate approval of this bylaw to proceed with a quadplex. So I'm just going to go through some of the zones a minute where we're going to be affected. So the R6, this is just something in my report because I'm using the Bill 44 template. So on lots less than 280 square feet, those are meters. Those are very small lots. We only have one zone district, which actually is smaller than that, and that is our small house zone. And I am not proposing changes to this. And primarily it's because of the desire to maintain the character that we intended, which is a small house on a small lot, not 4 units on that small lot. So that zone district is primarily being untouched with maybe one very tiny exception. So I go into some detail on page 13 on townhouses. That is because it is probably an area where we have some opportunity to see some development in the future. And I looked at what the city of Burnaby has done, Surrey, as some good examples where townhouses are also now being promoted on fee simple lots. And I just want to pause for a few minutes on that because typically a townhouse development is constructed as part of a strata. So it's one big lot, you put townhouses on it, make an arrangement, and then it's all strata. So all the land around the townhouses is owned in common. But there's another approach, which actually can be in some cases better for the ultimate homeowner, and that is fee simple lot. So each townhouse has its own lot. A number of years ago, the BC, I think it's the Land Title Act, was changed to allow this to happen. So basically you have the lot line between the units. This could also apply to duplexes, and that is in the draft bylaw, by the way. So all of this I have included in the draft bylaw. So it expands the opportunity and increases the flexibility for townhouse development. Well, and I have those are in there, and I'm not going to go through every single item there, but I just want to kind of as an overview. I did look at the city of Duncan. What did they do? They had only one zone district, which really was applicable. And they made some changes to it. I would say I'm not completely happy with where they ended up with because they're putting all the parking in the front yard in their illustrations. Anyways, it was constructive. Ladysmith has been fighting with the province because they have a lack of infrastructure to support. And I think they may have received an extension. North Cowichan changed their primary urban development zone to include the 4 units and in some cases 6. So they have gone forward with it. I discussed the city of Burnaby here only because of what they did for the townhouses, but also just to illustrate, they took 12 residential zone districts and turned them all into one. So now they're an already developed city. So that's not really a place we can go, but I did think about it. I thought, what if we did that here? Just one residential zone district and the number of units is dependent on the lot size. I didn't go there. So I just want to show you, this is an image. I thought there are some very good examples that I've seen. Surrey, BC, the Fox Ridge townhouses. So where you see the front entrance and the porches on the street. There's some townhouses can be a very attractive way to develop on the streets. And especially in future areas of development for the town. I think it's something worthy of including in here. So in summary, what I have done in this bylaw, the R6 I've already mentioned to you, literally no changes to R6. And I'm going to jump to the R1, which is our largest lot, the R1 suburban. No changes recommended. We'll leave this one alone. That's the zoning and the slopes. R2 urban, which is primarily in Point Ideal, there's only one minor change, and that's to slightly increase the maximum coverage from 45 to 50% on the lot. The biggest changes are made in the R3, what I'm suggesting being renamed to traditional core. So it's the bulk of the town's residential zoning. A lot of it is in the core area. I used the word core before, but traditional is kind of nicer sounding. That's my opinion. So there's a number of changes there. The biggest change is to allow quadplexes on lots that aren't corner. So, but I'm putting in a 780 square meter minimum size. So it wouldn't affect all the lots. It would be, anyways, it depends on the lot where it is. So it does expand the opportunity. I'm not going to go through every minor change. There is a change also I'm suggesting for duplexes. And that is to have a minimum, a differential front setback comparable to what Plant is doing in their little subdivision just at the entrance to the town. It's actually what they're doing is really quite attractive. And they have on their own done differential setbacks on the duplexes. You can drive in there and see them. This is a good time to go look. The only thing that I might question, which is why I'm glad this is still only first and second reading, there may be a tweak. After discussing this with our building inspector, I may not include the mirror design, the mirror image design restriction, which I'm proposing here in first and second reading. I may walk back from that. So anyways, I'm just letting you know, this is the beauty of a first and second reading, because there still may be some little tweaks that we can do. I think that summarizes it. I'm not going to go through the chart, but there is, for your edification information, there's a matrix that I developed to show where changes are happening and where they're not happening. So for the most part, I would say this is definitely less extensive than what other communities have had to go through under Bill 44. In our case, we can pick and choose what we wanted to do. And I think also there's a number of aesthetic considerations. I should point this out because we were encouraged by the province to specify 3 stories. And you may recall, we increased the height in the residential districts from 10.5 to 11. Okay. I am a little concerned that we may end up with very bulky looking 3-story buildings with flat roofs. So I actually put in here something that we already have in the R6 zone. And that is an 8-12 pitch roof. If you're going to build a 3rd story, you've got to have an 8 to 12 pitch roof, which reduces the impact on profile. So yes, this is an aesthetic consideration, but I'm proposing that. I think that covers, I believe, everything here. The only other thing I do want to mention, there is a minor change in the Schedule B, the parking. And this is, again, in part because of the provincial recommendations, and I think it's reasonable. So in apartments, instead of requiring 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom apartment, we'll keep that at one parking space. So that's a very minor modification. And then there are some other changes, and I will only, they're not in the report so much, but they would be subdivision. There's a few minor tweaks to the subdivision bylaw because we have to accommodate smaller lots with a little bit more coverage. And so I've identified that in the subdivision bylaw for the first and second reading for those changes. So that concludes what I hope was somewhat brief, but perhaps illuminating presentation on this. Otherwise, you can get lost in the weeds on this pretty quickly. So
Perfect. I'll look to see if there's any questions on this one. I don't see any on that, so you must have been very, 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 very informative. That's cool.
okay.
Thank you, James. That's a quad.
It's a quad.
You like that?
Yes, I like the quadplex. Moving on. We can go to bylaws. The Town of Lake Cowichan zoning amendment rental only bylaw number 1106-2024. As amended, may be read a third time. Joseph.
Yes, this bylaw was given first and second reading on the 23rd of July. A public hearing was held on the 24th of September. And the council decided not to go ahead with giving it third reading and adoption. And subsequently on October 8th, there was a meeting with the contract planner where some changes were made. Number of rentals only areas were removed. Otherwise, it's basically what was originally presented minus those changes. So it's here for third reading.
Okay, your pleasure. I had informed council that this would be the opportunity, should they wish, to bring forward any further amendments before third reading. So having said that, you have a question, Councillor Sandu, and I will turn to you for that question.
This is through to the planner. Thank you. Was there individual meetings with each property owner when you and the APC were putting together the properties? Besides a letter that went out to,
No, there were not separate meetings with property owners, so that we didn't seek permission, so to speak, or acquiescence. However, I will say that there was an entire category of properties included that had there was developer interest. Either in the past, there had been a request for rezoning. And in one case, land that actually is currently the subject of a rezoning application. And they had expressed interest early on in allowing some rental. This is for parcels on the old Lake Cowichan Highway on the edge of town. There had been meetings with the property owners of 14 or 15 South Shore here, just a few lots away from the town hall. Although we did not seek acquiescence, we had met with them earlier and we knew that there was an interest in development. And I know that in all of these cases, we, or myself, and any other representatives of the town, it might have included our town administrator as well, supporting me, an interest in rental only housing as a component of that. So we have been, in my perspective, consistently identifying rental only as a component of, I know, in at least 3 cases where we have expressed this interest as a part of a development proposal. So, but beyond that, no, we have not had separate side meetings with landowners. That's correct. Yes.
and then did any developers ask like incentives that would be, if they signed on to this, if they agreed to this and want to work with the town, was there any discussion on incentives for developers to become rental only?
So we have identified the funds available under the Housing Accelerator Fund. But in terms of, we can't commit to funds until something is, an applicant is interested and willing and moving forward on an application. So, but yes, we have identified that. And in fact, there's also a property which is now being removed from here. The property that on Elk Road that at the time we wrote this, there was an expression of interest from Habitat for Humanity. So that's a good example of where there was a discussion. So that's actually the 4th one, where we had hoped that would move forward. And we had put that on the table, that there was funding available to support this project. But I understand that Habitat has walked away, and since then, we've also removed that one from the list. Yes.
Just one more. On Sunday, I actually took the document and my town map and I drove and looked at each. Because you can't visualize by these numbers. So I actually physically had to see. So I now have an understanding of the locations. But one thing I took from the public meeting is that there wasn't enough consultation. It was a letter that went out to these the residents, the owners of these properties. And it was basically, this is when the public meeting will be da, da, da. And then all of a sudden there's a document saying, well, their property is going to be 100% rental and whatnot. So I look to that as, for me personally, it's problematic that we're enforcing something because the government, the provincial government has mandated it basically on local governments. If we sign up for this, but I just think there was not enough consultation. And I even went back to the APC minutes to see how much discussion was with the APC. And all I could see was one meeting of an hour and 5 minutes or something like that of where the plan was presented. And then all of a sudden the recommendations come to council. So to me, this is much bigger than just amending a small little zoning. We're changing people's lives. And right now, I can't support this, so.
Go ahead. Can I make one comment on this? So I do want to point out that there is there is another property that we have removed from this, and it is the R7 zoned parcel that previously had received a development permit approval for townhouses in Trails Edge. So the one which has received the most public concern has been removed. And the reason is, well, the rationale is just in this case to recognize the citizen concern. The other parcel, which is completely undeveloped and has never received any proposal yet, is the larger R7 parcel where this 25% is being retained in this proposed bylaw. And that is one that is owned by a developer who could frankly easily accommodate 25% rental. And I have good reason to believe that is entirely doable. So I'm just letting you know that that's the case, so that in terms of citizen concern, and these are not citizens who directly own the property, they just live in the neighborhood and they came. And so in respect of that and respect of your own decision-making, that you can be aware that that's something that we did listen to the public that came to the meeting. And I will say this, as far as all the other properties, because there's quite a number that were identified, the number of people who were opposed and came forward is actually quite small. I expected there might be more. And so what we have left on this amended bylaw, as far as I understand, there's only 2 remaining properties, and they're owned, they're vacant, and they're owned by development interests who have held those properties for long periods of time. And they are opposed to the change, but there's only 2 of those parcels left. None of the other parcels remaining, as I understand it, have opposition from the owners. So, okay.
Thank you. Moving to Councillor Frisbee.
Yeah, I'll speak to one of those in question. So the property at 15 South Shore Road, so they've got, the amendment is that they've got a 50% of units required for rental only. There has been, I've reached out to a few property owners. They've said that they've had discussions with their CAO saying that 4 or 5 units would be acceptable in there. And that's why they're so shocked when they seen the 50% designation at the previous reading. So out of all these properties, we see a lot of 25% or 100% rentals. Why is it that that property is 50% or half having to be rental? So what's the idea behind it? And do you think it's reasonable for it to stay at 50% in that, for that development?
Okay, so the first question, if I understand it, is 50%, is this the property on South Shore? Did you say 15 South Shore? The one where that has a real estate sign on it? Yeah. So the rationale for that one to be at 50%, it is from my perspective, from the analysis we did, it is the absolute best location almost in the entire town for rental units. It's across the street from our main bus stop. It's our main bus exchange. It's in the center of everything. So it scored a 1. It's been vacant for 20 years. It's the number 1 site. And many properties around it are also rental. You know, they're senior citizens' homes, but it is a very highly desirable site for rental units. And so that is why it was awarded at 50%. And so the approach we took was to give as well. So that property in particular, right now, only 1 dwelling unit is allowed on the property. That's what the zoning allows. And we can leave it that way. If we knock it off, that's where it stays. Under this scenario, they get units. They could build as much as 50 there. They probably couldn't. That was just my analysis, right? It was kind of a maximum. They probably could get maybe 24 units on that site. So that's 23 more than they have. And then half of those would be rental. So from my perspective, that was a reasonable ask to put that at that level. And then I think you had a second question, which I didn't quite catch.
I guess that they were confused because they were getting direction from staff that 4 or 5 would be reasonable, and then they seen that it was 50%. So is the entire staff on board with having this at 50%?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand there was a meeting that I met with the owners in January. And there was a discussion of rental and affordable. And so at that time, 4 or 5 units, in fact, I would argue 4 or 5 units, if it ends up being a dozen units on the site, that's not unreasonable. So is there a spread there? Yes, there could be. That's correct. There could be somewhat of an inconsistency. If in fact I said that, and I can't remember what number. Again, it was a very informal meeting of interest. And the most I would have said was, yes, we're interested in rental and we're interested in some affordable units. So.
Then just one last follow-up is, I think there's some misconception that this is affordable housing we're trying to create, but it's simply rental properties, isn't it? So
Correct.
there's a lot of people that are coming to me saying, how are you creating affordable housing? We're not saying we are, we're just saying we want rentals there. So that is part of the misconception of this process, I think. In summary, I am happy with the amendments that have been made. I think that we've addressed most of them, and some of the changes we've made are acceptable.
Councillor Vomaca.
Thank you. I have a few questions to ask. First of all, I understand we want to preserve existing rental housing, and I'm okay with all of that. Developers are here to build, make money, and move on. They're not wanting to be landlords. And so I'm worried that anything that may be built now will sit vacant even longer, because when you said it was desirable, this location down here, it's desirable for building condos and people want to live and see the river. How affordable would it be for somebody to rent there? So we're not actually having affordable housing unless $3,000 or $4,000 a month is affordable for some people. And when I look through, I'm going, some are 25% rental only, some are 50, some are 100. And so it's not consistent. And so the question to the CAO too is that if we pass the way these are now, then that property owner has to come to council and they have to pay for a rezoning change. If we pass the zoning, do they not?
If they want to change again,
Yes.
yes.
So I don't think it's fair for us to put that back on the owner when we were making the changes. Like we said, we're not sure every person who owns this property is okay with this just because a letter went out to them. So I'm not happy doing this until I know that whether it was a letter or, because every one of these owners potentially could come in and say, you know what? Yeah, I see what you guys want to do and I'm okay with you changing my designation to this. But we're not seeing that because I'm seeing owner opposes, rental owner opposes, owner opposes. And so I can't support us doing this to people's livelihood, their property, something they own. Because we're trying to make the government happy, but at what cost?
Did I hear a question in there? I think more a statement than anything.
Well, the one question was,
To
do they
Joseph?
have to, if we do
For
this, do
rezoning.
they have to rezone? And a question is to, how was it determined 25%, 50%, 100%?
May I make a comment and answer a question? So on the 25, 50 versus 100, it has to do with the rating that was achieved, the size of the property, the location. There were considerations, right? It was to try to be reasonable and yet be firm in our expectations. So as I explained, the one site at 50%, it's a prime site for rental because it's so good. In other cases, 25% still gives a lot of leeway to a developer, right? The 100% really only happened on some very small properties that were already developed, where it would be additional development on top of commercial, for example, where it'd be too complicated to try to just do a few units. And I do want to make one more comment about the government wanting us to do something. Yes, to some extent. And by the way, the rental only isn't tied to Bill 44. The rental only is tied to our agreement as a town to pursue rental only. So this was our agreement. We put it in the grant proposal and it was accepted. So we do have some obligation to do some work here. And I also want to point out that this is also a policy in our official community plan. And I'm quite certain that, let me put this a little differently. There are times when the town, in this case, when it seeks to achieve something, it has to take action, which doesn't necessarily please everybody. What I have tried to do here and what the Advisory Planning Commissioners try to do is make it so that, hey, someone who wants to develop land can still make plenty of money. We're not restricting. And in fact, I just want to make the point, and pretty much in many of the cases, in a number of the cases where we have proposed adding the rental requirement, we have also increased the number of units they can build, which is why on this map, there's a number of cases where the zoning is changing to R4 or R7. So it's a package deal. And we do know there's one case, and because you've seen the letters, it's the SureSpan property a few lots away. For them to come back and seek a change on the rental, they're well resourced to go through a process. And regardless of what we do, whether we leave it alone and pull it out, which is an option to just take it off the map. We can wipe it off the map, I believe, of those other properties, or move forward as we did. They're going to come in with an application for some kind of variances or changes regardless. And that's pretty much the message we've gotten from them. So as far as that property goes, and I would argue for anybody who's held property for long periods of time already, and it's been sitting there vacant literally for decades, they've had plenty of opportunity. We're saying now, we're going to encourage you. We're giving you the zoning, but we have a stipulation. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Follow up, you're good there? So I think we've been discussing rental only zones for quite a number of years at this table. And And to have it come forward in partially developed subdivisions who have already been approved is a little bit taken aback by some of the owners of those developments. I love the opportunity for looking at bare land for options within rental only. And I agree that the property at 15 South Shore is key to rental only possibilities within transit routes, which the province consistently speaks about. Having rental only applications within Burnaby, for instance, along the transit corridor, which have been developed and are currently being rented. So I do not argue with that one. I do consider some other vacant lands that are not currently on here that could be brought forward at a future date. And I think that would be another opportunity for rental only within that purview of lands. So I think with all the questions and discussions, if there's no further comments or questions, that we move forward with either an amendment proposed or moving forward with third reading. I'm looking for a mover. Moved by Councillor Frisbee on third reading, seconded by Councillor Austin. Final discussion? That was a pause, just to. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's 2 opposed. I vote in favor, so that breaks the tie. So the Town of Lake Cowichan zoning amendment rental only bylaw may be reconsidered and adopted. Mover? Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Austin. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? I vote in favor, so that motion carries. Thank you, James. Thank you, APC, for your work on this. Under C, the Town of Lake Cowichan permissive tax exemption, churches and not-for-profit. I'm sorry,
I need to recuse myself for this.
on what grounds?
That, regarding the Sikh temple.
Okay. So Councillor Sandhu is declaring a conflict or perceived conflict on one of the properties proposed for tax exemption. So there is a list there of those who have been afforded property tax exemption. With your approval, mover by director, I've demoted you already. Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Bomaka. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. I know you can hear me, but come on back in. I'm not going to tell you how that went.
Watch the video.
Now we have under D, Town of Lake Cowichan permissive tax exemption for the boat launch on North Shore Road. Bylaw number 1108, 2024. May be reconsidered and adopted. Nothing there for you input, Joseph?
Pardon me?
Nothing from you on this one?
Nothing.
No, it's
It's
normal.
property that we've leased.
Yes. So moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. All those in favor? That motion carries. Now, the Town of Lake Cowichan Respectful Spaces Bylaw, 1094-2024 may be reconsidered and adopted. Mover, Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Frisbee. Discussion on this one? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Town of Lake Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw number 1110-2024 may be read a first and second time. Joseph.
Yeah, this is the bylaw that the contract planner just spoke earlier. And it's here for first and second reading,
With some major emphasis on quadplexes.
quadplexes, yes.
I'm going to use that considerably frequently in the future. Do I have a mover on that? Moved by Counselor Frisbee, seconded by Counselor Austin. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Town of Lake Cowichan fees and charges for services bylaw number 1111-2024 may be read a first, second, and third time. Joseph?
Yeah, the intent of this and the following bylaws, the water, sewer, and refuse were raised with the committee last 2 weeks ago. And so it's based on the recommendation from the committee. These bylaws reflect those rate changes.
Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Frisbee, seconded by Counselor Vomaka. Any discussion on those? I'm sure there was considerable discussion at committee of the whole. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Next, Town of Lake Cowichan Water Regulations and Rates Bylaw number 111112-2024 may be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Counselor Sandhu, seconded by Counselor Frisbee. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the Town of Lake Cowichan Sewer Regulations and Rates Bylaw number 1113-2024. That can also be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Counselor Sandhu, seconded by Counselor Austin. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you. Now the Town of Lake Cowichan Refuse Regulations and Rates Bylaw number 1114-2024 may be read a first, second, and third time. It's not a quadplex, but it's a try reading. See how I got that in there? By Counselor Sandhu, seconded by Counselor Vomaka. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. The Town of Lake Cowichan Subdivision Works and Services Amendment Bylaw number 1115-2024 can be read a first, second, and third time. Oh, James,
Can we just read it twice?
we can do,
Do a third next month, and the reason is there may be, just in case we do any minor changes to it yet.
so let's amend that to say first and second reading. We're good with that? Perfect. Moved by Counselor Frisbee, seconded by Counselor Austin. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Next, under new business, we have a leave of absence for Counselor Vomaka from the November 12th, 2024 meeting. Moved by Counselor Sandhu, seconded by Counselor Frisbee. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Now there's some council resolutions for appointments. At this time, I would like to thank Counselor Sandhu for her time as deputy mayor. For this term, this year, it'll be Counselor Vomaka, watch out, as the deputy mayor.
Counselor Frisbee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the third year. Was last.
I'd rather go the other way, but
You didn't look at his sheet.
I didn't look at my sheet. So do you want to wait for the last year? Okay. Deputy Mayor, we'll call it Counselor Frisbee. How's that?
Something like that.
Cowichan Valley Regional District Alternate Representative. Again, thank you to Counselor Vomaka for her 2 years as the alternate. I'd like to move Counselor Sandhu as the alternate for the Cowichan Valley Regional District Representative. I have a seconder. Nobody wants to second it. Counselor Vomaka. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The motion carries. And I'm just moving the chair of the committee of the whole. I figure I'd give everybody a chance to at least chair some meetings and gain the experience of having to talk considerably amount of time like I do. So the chair of the committee of the whole, starting next month, will be Counselor Frisbee. And under C, that's all the appointments I have at this time. Cowichan Valley Regional District regarding the EMC 2025 Emergency Management Grants. Joseph.
Yes, the CAOs from the region have had a number of meetings, and we've gone over some grant opportunities. And the CBRD is putting in more than 3 grant applications. And there are 3 that they need our support on. The first one is the Emergency Support Services Regional Grant from UBCM for $200,000. So it needs the support of the town of Lake Cowichan. And there is a draft resolution there that you can look at the bottom of the page.
Do I have a mover on that? Moved by Counselor Sandu, seconded by Counselor Austin. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Was there anything further on those?
Pardon me?
Just that one?
Just three.
Yeah, just all 3 of them.
Yeah.
All 3 you need.
Each resolution, yeah.
You can pass it all together or separately.
So you're moving all 3, aren't you?
Sure.
I knew that. And Counselor Austin is seconding all 3. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. I missed last month's meeting, so I'm going to throw in a third quarter mayor's report. I'll do that now. October 2024 marks the halfway point for this council's term. And with that, I would encourage you to take the time to watch Councillor Frisbee's video on Facebook, which showcases the accomplishments of this council to date. There are still several items to address in the strategic plan, and council will continue to work on these in our remaining years. Special thank you to Councillor Sandu as Deputy Mayor and the rest of council for covering my duties as I recover from hip replacement surgery. Very much appreciated. October also marks the return to a slower pace in town. Summer has come and gone, and we saw a large influx of tourists coming to our region to shop, visit our unique shops, and recreate. A parking study was conducted during this time to identify areas that need addressing. Please consider shopping locally during the off-season to maintain our business diversity. The provincial election left us in suspense, as a clear message was sent by the electorate on their frustrations with a number of issues. To all who were successful, congratulations. To those who put their names forward, a huge thank you. And let's see where the next weeks and months lead our province forward. And on behalf of council, a huge shout out to all the great volunteers and organizations in our community who go above and beyond to support the citizens of our area. And with that, that's the third quarter mayor's report. Remembrance Day, November 11th. Please join us at the Cenotaph. And we will remember those who did not return. And moving on, the back page. Any notices of motion? I didn't hear any at the start. Your final opportunity. So we have question period. If there's any people watching online and you have a question, the phone number to call would be 250-749-3239. Again, for offsite, the phone number is 250-749-3239. For those in the audience, if you have questions, there's a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. If you please step up to the podium, just mention your name and your question. We'll do our best to answer it.
These are correct.
Hello, Mayor and Council and staff. My name is Bev Litster and I'm a member of the APC. And I understand the changes that you have requested. And I have questions for each of you, 3 questions each of you, and then I have 3 comments. So if you could answer them. The first question is, what is the purpose of the recording and access for APC meetings? What is the purpose of the recording and the access to the recordings?
Does anyone want to respond to that? I think the intent was to have a better understanding of the information afforded, not only to the APC, but also to this table coming forward. We are recorded in our proceedings, as are a number of other appointed committees throughout other organizations. And we thought that was another way forward for extra information for this table.
Okay, and how did each person vote and what was the circumstance or the reasoning behind your vote for or against?
I think these questions are much in the same, but from my point of view, it was the rental only process. We were asked a lot of questions and were given information from the APC that was limited. So we were being asked by the public why some of the properties are in it. We then had to try and go to the APC or find the minutes for it and see what the reasoning was. So you're asking us why the reasoning is for our vote. It's because we need to see your reasoning. Now that we're asked, like when we asked what's going on with the APC, we're basically told, if you want to know, go and attend it. Everyone's free to attend it. So I don't know if you've heard of the amendment that we made last meeting, but it was that only we can view it. It's not a public thing. So instead of us attending it, we get to hear what you have to say. And I think that's what the APC are there for, is that you want to get your message across to us. So I get the feeling that you've taken offense to we're recording it, but some of us don't have the ability to get to every meeting. We just want to hear your voice. So I hope you appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
I think,
And
Could we
you-
ask, could we
Councillor
answer
Sandhu's got,
just as we're going? And
Oh, sure.
just, for me, I voted in favor of this for my own personal reasons of just listening to the conversations at the table, just like how we have conversations. Each of us has input on something, our perspective and whatnot. And it's not a judgment. And I was fine with it not being out there in the public, but just for council and the APC members just to have it. Whatnot. For me, it was just the information. If I couldn't attend an APC meeting, which most Thursdays I can't, I just wanted the understanding of the discussions at the table, nothing more, nothing less.
anyone else on that end?
And I voted in favor too, because I run a business, so I'm not available during the daytime. And so when the public did ask, we'd go, well, because the APC recommended it. We didn't have any clear reasoning as to why. And it was something like tonight when I asked our planner, how do you figure 25% or 50 or 100? We don't know. So this way, if we could review it in our own time, we can get a better understanding, was the only reason for it.
Okay. Under public sector surveillance guidelines, was this consulted before you made that recommendation?
We gave direction to staff to give us advice on whether this fell into policy, and there was no policy brought up. But I just want to underline, I find it ridiculous that the APC is questioning why we want to hear your voice. We want to hear your opinion. That's why you're in that position. The fact that we can't attend meetings, we say, hey, can we see the meetings? We're getting incomplete minutes. We're not getting reasoning. When we are asked why JH Boyd wasn't included in the rental only, we just say because one APC member didn't like it. So the fact that you're up here at the moment questioning why we want to hear your voice makes me question who was on the APC.
I appreciate that. I'm coming at this from a person, we're all volunteers. We're not paid. And there's privacy issues that come into things with regard to public sector surveillance. And that's what I recommend, that your council go through this surveillance, because you are the public body.
And I think the
And-
intent, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think the intent is just for council personal use. It's not to have it transmitted to the general public. It's just for us if we are convalescing from hip replacement surgery and we want to know what the discussion was on the rental only zone, that we can have that sent to us through our secure server just for our own viewing, signing an affidavit if we have to, that we will not share this within any social media purviews. That policy can certainly be implemented, that is only for council use in decision-making. And let's remember that the Advisory Planning Commission is an advisory role, and we appreciate immensely your input. But having terse minutes and perhaps only snippets from our liaison sometimes does not suffice us to make an appropriate informed decision. So that is the only intent that was my viewing on that. So I hope you don't take offense that we were thinking of putting this out into the internet for people to view. We respect your volunteering and your privacy. And to that effect, we will do our utmost if this is going forward to continue to provide that. I think Councillor Austin had something.
Yeah. I don't really have a problem with the recording so much, but it does say video as well, and I know some people do not appreciate being on video. I take offense at you saying my minutes were terse or something, my comments were terse. The comments I made the last time were coming from all of us on that board that felt that things were going sideways. Anyway, I'm not against the recording, and if it goes only to council, that's fine. We have some very fulsome discussions, and obviously minutes are not as fulsome as they should be.
And that's what I meant. I didn't
Yeah.
mean, I meant they
Yeah.
weren't as wholesome as the discussion.
Yes.
And I apologize.
I
for
don't
using
mind that,
terse.
but if you look at your COTW, it said video as well, and people don't like their privacy. They don't want to be on Facebook and things like that. So maybe just the actual recording. And then if we can do that for the next group that started in January, because this team is over at the end of this year, unless they reapply. And then it would say in their form that they fill out that they will be recorded during their meeting. So that needs to be in there. Yes, for council use only, so council can listen to it as long as it is protected, as you say, and affidavits are signed and that type of thing. Because there are people that don't want everybody to know what they're saying all the time, and we see that in public meetings all the time.
And we understand there are some privacy issues with people not wanting to be identified for various safety reasons as well. So we do understand that.
Oh, and just to add to Councillor Frisbee's statement about we want to know who voted which way. That's what I heard.
Sorry, you saying that I said I wanted to know which way people voted?
One person voted one
No,
way.
that was the feedback when we asked about why JH Boyd wasn't included. Our town planner said one person had a problem with being in it. So that's not my statement. Clarify that. It was
Thank
what
you.
we're given from staff.
Thank you. I guess what confuses me is the fact that I don't understand how council goes in through due diligence and does not have this information that is public. And as a public body, how you're not looking at more wholesome view of something when it comes to managing a subcommittee of council.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank
Okay,
you very
thank
much for
you.
your input. And thank you for your time. Please don't take this as any discourse to your input that we do appreciate. But as I stated before, it would be nice to know the full wholesome discussion instead of the snippets of minutes that we do get. And that was the only intent. It was not to chastise people for how they vote, because I don't care how you vote. Because when it comes to this table, whatever you say is the decision made at this place, whether we agree with you or don't. So as an advisory commission, we appreciate your input, and we look back at some of the input that previous APCs have implemented, whether it be the welcome sign at the start of town, the columbarium sighting. So we do appreciate and accommodate a number of those considerations. So please don't take that the wrong way, please. Any phone calls, Joseph? I'm surprised. Yeah, it's plugged in too. So with that, we're going to go in camera. Joseph, state the reasons why.
Of the community charter requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is to be closed to the public, council must take by resolution why the meeting is to be closed. And the basis on which the meeting is to be closed falls under the following sections of the community charter. Section 91D, acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, and Section 91F, law enforcement.
So we will not use our microphones during the in-camera portion, but I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Vomaka that we go on camera. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Let's take a short break.